Hi, welcome to another session of Patient's Perspective. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the hardships that those with special needs go through during this COVID environment. And as we know, it's a tough time for everybody, but today's focus is going to be on those with special needs. Those who are deaf, who are used to reading lips, can really have a difficult time because obviously they can't do that if someone's wearing a mask. And distancing can prevent problems for someone hard of hearing, and even on Zoom things might not seem as clear. I recently talked to a man who's blind and I said, how are you dealing with all this? He said it's really tough and usually has to have someone with him now, and those who suffer from depression can have exacerbated symptoms. The suicide rate has gone up. The social isolation takes a big toll, just like it does on all of us. It's a tough situation. There could be those who have caretakers come in, and if that caretaker gets sick, it poses a big problem because in this environment it's much harder to find caretakers to come in. And there are also those with autism that may find the change in routine difficult, or suppose they're used to going to a speech therapist and suddenly that's on Zoom. And that's also a change of routine. I recently heard a person who stutters on the radio, and he was talking about what he goes through. And he said not only is the stress of everything making his stuttering worse, but if he's wearing a mask and talking with a stranger, and this person who stutters suddenly is hesitating, the stranger can't quite make out what's going on because he can't read the body language of the face with the mask on. So that's a difficult thing. And then we also have, of course, as we know, people who are in the hospital and can't have visitors come in, or people will bring their pets to the vet and the owner has to wait in the car and can't be there to comfort the pet. The same way we can't comfort our loved ones in the hospital and so forth. It's a very tough time. There are also those people who have trouble standing for long periods of time. Some of the large supermarkets that used to have benches, I know during when the crisis hit last year there were severe restrictions and that many removed those benches, and same thing by the pharmacy area in some stores. And that can present a real problem for people who can't stand long. Now some people may have what they call rollators that they can use to go around and sit on periodically, but other people are not in that situation. Suppose you had someone on crutches or so forth, or it's just difficult for those people who need to sit down and rest. Now we also have situations with people that can't drive, and they may rely on family or wonderful friends that help them out, or dial ride public transportation. And I'll give you an example how this can be difficult. Suppose someone gets dropped off by dial ride, and the dial ride has left, and that person proceeds to enter the doctor's office, only to find a sign on the door that says, "Please wait in your car," and they would come out and get you when they're ready. And the door may be locked. So the people who can't drive, and this includes myself, we don't have a car to wait in. So sometimes there's no bench to sit on. Even if there was a bench, it could be too hot out or too cold outside. Now, people are fortunate if they have a cell phone and then they can call into the office to explain the predicament they're in. But I have met two people outside that didn't own a cell. They didn't have a smartphone, not even a flip phone. So we have to remember that there are some people in that situation. It becomes very, very difficult for them. Also, suppose the patient can get in, but the person who drove them is there, but they have to wait in the car. Maybe that person alone has some ailments that make it difficult for them to sit a long time in the car, or it's too hot out or too cold, as I said, and the appointment could go on for hours. And the other issue is there's no bathrooms available for those people or for patients stuck outside. And some of these people have, let's say, guys with prostate trouble, or I have a bladder disease called interstitial cystitis. and it becomes really difficult for people that have these types of issues. So I know I haven't touched on all the issues, but I apologize if I haven't gotten to yours. There's one more thing I do want to bring up that people can run into that use dial-ride, and that is the issue of you don't always know when it's going to drop you off at the office or what time they're going to pick you up. And when restrictions are really tight, which could happen again if these variants get out of control, it's tough because I found, for example, last year, one of the offices, I called ahead of time to explain my predicament and said I didn't have a car. And I said, well, if the dial-ride drops me off early, can I come in? And they said no, that they wanted me there right at the appointment time. And it was over 110 degrees out. So you really don't know what time you're going to get there, and coming home is the same. Because if you call dial-ride, for example, and say, please pick me up at my house at 8 o'clock, they may show up 8:15, earlier than that, and so on. And you have a window time frame, but you don't really know exactly when they're showing up, and on the way they could be picking other people up, dropping people off, and so forth. So it's difficult in those ways as well. So what I tried to do to bring more attention to this was get this more into the media. And I started first trying to also get this attention with some other offices to see how maybe I could handle this. So I called many places. I don't have the list in front of me, but I started with the COVID hotline. I called CDC, the Department of Public Health, the Attorney General's, the Department of Justice, and on, and many other places. I really wasn't getting anywhere because most of those places told me that these doctors and dentist offices are private facilities, so there wasn't a whole lot they could do, and my only recourse would be a lawsuit, which is what I didn't want to hear, because I didn't want to sue, and it wouldn't help those who need immediate attention. It wasn't going to help the issue at hand. So what I did, I called my local mayor's office, and they tried to help me more than anyone by contacting some of these other places who never got back to me, including the governor's office, who never responded after a couple months and 3 calls on my part. So I'm not sure if that was because the governor's office felt it was a private issue, but my point was we do send guidelines as far as mask and distancing, so I think they should also have guidelines for people with special needs that may be stuck outside and so forth, or need to have an advocate come in this time of COVID environment. Many of us weren't allowed advocates inside, and that's a whole other issue. I'll be talking about that in another video, the importance of advocates. Some I know were allowed inside. I did talk personally to some advocates, but some were not. So I think a lot depends on the situation with that as well. So my journey was a long one in trying to bring attention to the media. And my last resort was a television station, and I did speak with one of the reporters, and unfortunately he didn't have enough interest in what I was hoping that he would. So I did what I could, but we can all help spread awareness about this. So I very much appreciate you listening today, and please join me next Friday. I hope to see you then. Bye.